ranking list video of mine. If you don't know what that is, it's essentially where I rank movies from worst to best. I've done Tim Burton, David Fincher, David Lynch, Steven Spielberg. Check them out down below. I've done a lot of them. I like doing them. What can I say? And today I figured I would focus on Jason Reitman, a independent movie director, and he's done 8 movies feature length as of right now. I know he's doing the new Ghostbusters movie. That's not going out until next year, so I figured why not review 8 of his movies and rank them? So, for those of you who don't know, eight's going to be his worst, one's going to be his best. And again, keep in mind, this is my thoughts on his 8 movies. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, number 8 is Young Adult. Young Adult stars Charlize Theron, Patrick Wilson as 2 people that knew each other in high school, like 15, 20 years later, and how much they've changed since then, or how maybe some people have or haven't changed, I should add. It's not a bad movie. It's just a movie that I think is very okay, that has a very unlikable lead character. And I know it's intentional, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like, I just couldn't really fully go on board with this movie, other than the fact that, cool, it's a female lead character. That's awesome. However, it's also a movie that was kind of unlikable and not in a insightful way. Like, I didn't really get much out of this movie. Maybe in 20 years I will, but for right now, didn't get much out of it. And the same could honestly be said for Labor Day. Labor Day is my number 7 pick, and Labor Day stars Josh Brolin and Kate Winslet. Big fan of both of them, but that whole idea of someone getting held captive in their own house and end up, Stockholm syndrome it. I mean, it was okay. I didn't hate it much in the same way as Young Adult. I think that it's a movie that it's okay. Like the writing and the character development's okay. It's nothing like special, but at the same time, it's a movie that you can watch and enjoy while it's going on. But at the same time, afterwards, you don't really remember that much. Like in fact, when I was ranking this list, I was like, oh yeah, forgot I saw Labor Day. So just goes to show you how memorable the movie is. But speaking of memorable, my number 6. This is a movie that it's his most recent one, and I thought it was okay. And it's the front runner. I think that when you're dealing with politics, especially if you have Hugh Jackman, J.K. Simmons, Vera Farmiga in it, I think you have a lot to work with. And unfortunately, this movie didn't fully realize that, and it stinks because again, this is a movie that had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it's just diverting. Like while watching, you're like, yeah, this is okay, but it felt a bit too long, and at the same time you don't really remember it. It's a very vapid film. And it stinks because, again, given everything about this movie, you'd think that it would smell Oscar bait, and instead, nothing happens. So that's why it's my number 6. But not going to lie, my number 5 is what a lot of people would probably have as their number 8 choice. And that's Men, Women, and Children. I can't lie. I dug Men and Women and Children. I think this is a really well-made movie. It's a solid film, but it's also really well made. And I have heard some people say, oh, it's not realistic, especially in like the 21st century. But boy, let me tell you, I can relate to this movie. This whole environment that these kids are dealing with, I don't know. I could personally relate to it. That's just me and my experience living out here in the suburbs. But like I was able to relate to it. I thought it was very insightful with what it was dealing with. And any movie that takes Adam Sandler away from those comedy films and puts him in a drama, I don't know. I give that director props. Jason Reitman did that with Adam Sandler, and I think Adam Sandler gave a very subdued but interesting performance in this movie. And I thought it was a solid movie. I can't lie. If someone was like, "Hey, want to rewatch Men, Women, and Children with me?" It's my first time watching. I'm like, "Yeah, I want to watch." It's not top tier suburban drama like American Beauty or Little Children. It's still a really well made movie that's enjoyable nonetheless. That's why it's my number 5. My number 4 is honestly what would have been my number 5, but there was just something about it that made it squeak out the number 4 spot, and that's Up in the Air. Up in the Air is a well-made movie as well, but what I liked about it is the fact that it's dealing with something that doesn't really get dealt with that much. I mean, you don't really hear about those people that travel a lot, that travel essentially 300 plus days out of the year. You don't really hear that much about these type of people, but they are out there. A lot of people out there are like that. And that's why I like that there was a movie that actually was focusing on that. With a couple of cliches in it, especially towards the end. Yeah, sure, but at the same time, I do think that it was nonetheless still an insightful movie that focuses on people that don't really get that much focus, unfortunately. So that's why it's my number 4. We're in the top 3 now, guys. Now, number 3 is a movie that was one of the 2 that came out last year of his, and that is Tully. Tully is a very, very well-made movie. A lot of insight going on, well-written dialogue. It's got Mark Duplass in it, and it's also got a third act that really surprised me, took me off guard, especially given what genre this film is in. You know, like this type of genre doesn't really have with what happens in the final act. The reason why I'm being vague is because I don't want you guys to, scold me for spoiling a movie. And I don't like spoiling movies to begin with, but with what they do in the final act, it's very, very well done. And I think it says a lot about that type of situation. You don't know what I'm saying when you see it. But Tully, man, I want to rewatch it. I saw it in theaters. I really liked it. I want to rewatch it. It's a very well-made movie. But the final 2, guys. Now keep in mind, number 2 would have taken number 1, honestly, but I've only seen it one time, and that's why I was like, you know what? Let me rewatch it before giving it that number 1 tier, because my number 1 pick I've seen many times. But my number 2, that's Thank You for Smoking. This is a really, really well-made movie. I really liked this movie and what it had to say about the smoking industry and just industries in general, with how there are all these regulations and everything, but they still find a way to slip and get by them somehow, and just selling in general. I mean, this is a movie that I think everyone should watch because it's a very, I know I've been using the word insightful for Jason Reitman's movies, but it's the truth. His movies are insightful. They do try to focus on like things that don't really get much focus on in other movies or shows. And I'll get into that at the end of this review, but I think Thank You for Smoking is especially insightful, and it definitely is a stick to your ribs type movie. And I love when movies are like that. But there's a movie that I saw more times, and I'm not saying because I saw more then it makes it better, but at the same time, it's the movie that introduced me to Jason Reitman. It's the movie that made me say, you know what? Dude, check out his other movies, see how he is. And that is, of course, Juno. Now, Juno is, well, it's the movie that put him on the map. I mean, Thank You for Smoking was his first movie, technically, but Juno is the one that made him a box office sensation. I mean, this movie made a lot of money. None of his other movies have even come close to making as much as this movie. This movie really hit home with a lot of people. Even if you don't agree with the messages, and I'm not saying I do or don't, but even so, the messages are still insightful. They're very interesting, and with how they go about it, it's what that, that movie Unplanned that came out earlier this year? Right. Unplanned is what this movie succeeded in doing. Unplanned is the failed version. This is a very low-budget movie, but it's very well told. It's got great performances. It also put Ellen Page on the map, which is always a good thing. Great side characters, great messages, really nice ending, and it's a hipster's wet dream. I'm not saying I'm a hipster, but I do like a movie that kind of exploits that, and I'm all for that. That's why Juno is my number 1. So, those of you who don't know, usually what I like to do at the end of ranking lists for directors, I like to tell you as the audience my thoughts on that director. Jason Reitman, I didn't just, pick him for, this week's, best director. I chose him specifically because he's an independent director. And I know I've done independent directors before, like Quentin Tarantino, but I feel like Jason Reitman doesn't really get talked about that much other than the fact that, he's the son of the director who did the original Ghostbusters. But I feel as though he gives a lot of insight to his characters. He gives a lot of insight on stories and messages that don't really get that much focus on. And I like that. I like when a director is ambitious like that and is able to just weave that into his filmography. I mean, you watch all his movies and it's like, you look and you say, well, they're not all similar, except with they're insightful and they are focusing on things that don't get much focused on. And I like that. I'm not the biggest fan of Jason Reitman because if you look at the list, again, 8 movies, 3 of them I really, really liked. 2 of them I thought were solid, and then another 3 I thought were just So he's hit or miss. And that's why Ghostbusters 2020, I don't know what to expect. I really don't, because, he's the son of the director that did the original Ghostbusters, but I just don't know, man. I really don't, because he's an independent director. His highest budget's probably been like 10, 20 million, not $200 million, which is probably what the new Ghostbusters is going to be. So it's going to be interesting. I hope it's good because, again, I think Jason Reitman is a good independent director. But who knows? It should be interesting nonetheless. And it's definitely going to be better than the Ghostbusters 2016. That movie's terrible. But I digress. Guys, those are my thoughts again on Jason Reitman's films, worst to best. Let me know your list on his films, worst to best, in the comment section below. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. And who do you want me to rank next? I'm planning to still do Sergio Leone. I was going to do Sam Mendes and Terrence Malick, but I realized both of them had movies coming out at the end of December, so I'm probably going to wait for those two directors to do towards the end of the year after I've seen their new movies. But for now, guys, what other directors should I do? Comment section below. And as always, the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.